Sana, just so I can read our notes for today. Podcast.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Around Your Roots. This is episode 3, Juneteenth and Restorative Justice. I'm your host Bird, and I'm always here with Saskia. How you doing, Saskia?
Hey, Vera, what's going on today?
Um, a little happier actually. Things are looking good in my harvest. As you guys
Woohoo!
know, I do cultivate my own cannabis. And yeah, I'm at the final stages, so it's always that, not so much going past the finish line, but almost there, like a quarter mile off.
I think I'm on like the other tail end of you. So I'm just my babies. I have babies now. So
Right,
I'm not harvesting right now. I probably won't be able to harvest until October, probably around there.
definitely.
Um, but yeah, I'm really excited. The weather has been good for them, and they've been growing like so fast. It's been like I've been like shocked. It's been like 2 weeks out of the red cup, and they're like almost reaching my hip, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow,
Once
super.
once the plants get to the sun, it's no stopping them. Like there's no light on earth that's ever gonna compete with the sun. So
Yeah, they're happy.
definitely, right.
They're happy, for sure.
So what
Um,
else is going on here, girl?
Really what I've been trying to figure out with them, honestly, is because I've got some baby ones and some baby clones, and they are just so small. I'm like, they're gonna need so much encouragement, and I just want to start making compost teas. And I should for my other ones, but they're growing like so well and so rapidly. I haven't been stressed out about them, but the little ones I'm really concerned about. So, and my other ones are like the little ones are gifted and on a different growth cycle, but I just want to make sure that they'll I'll get like a good harvest out of them. By October. So just been looking into compost teas to encourage growth and helping to maximize yield. And definitely if you want to get into it, I'm definitely down like to get into some compost tea talking today.
Yeah,
um,
definitely, man.
all of our growers, consumers, drop any questions that you have for us, for our grow talk for today, and we're happy to try to answer anything.
Right. So that's funny that you're bringing up compost tea now because I actually make compost teas also for my vegetable garden. Um, I
Mm.
used compost tea in my last couple of plants, and just off of like how the harvest came out, I definitely seen a like increase in yield, increase in bud morphology. Um, and in the coming weeks, I can test to see how clear the terpenes come out, and how complex that is. So I definitely seen a good increase in comparison to the same strains, because I clone a lot. So it's not like I'm using a different plant and it's coming out different. No, it's the same plant. And when I first started using it, I wasn't so much into the compost teas that I'm going to talk to you about now. I was more so just buying them out the store. So for me right now, how I start doing my compost teas is I have to make sure that I have these equipments. This is basically a pump uh, that will allow you to aerate your compost teas. Um, and
Mm.
aeration is the thing that people don't understand with compost tea sometimes, especially with the people that use the pre-made bags that are, in stores, is
Mm-hmm.
that your goal is to multiply um, the colonies of microbes. So I'm a big fan with microbes and you know focusing more on the plant growing itself and me just putting in the inputs that it needs to survive. So like this right here is considered a you can buy an air stone, but this is called a air snake, I believe, from T Labs. Um, and basically it's custom fit to fit in a 5 gallon bucket, and it's very very convenient to bubble out compost teas 5 gallons at a time. Um, Also, with when comes with nutrient compost teas, you got to understand that depending on what type of compost tea you are looking for, there's going to be different types of nutrients that you're going to be using. So, like this one particular azomite, um, that's like a perfect trace mineral source for all the macronutrients that people don't really like think about as much. People are always thinking about MPK, but there's other nutrients that keep the plant healthy. um so yeah, this is just my little setup of this is the bags that I use to put the compost, the nutrients, and any enzymes that I use. And this right here is my vermicompost. So I
Mm-hmm.
cultivate my own worm castings. Um,
Holy crap.
Basically, I started. Yeah, so this is what it looks like. I know you haven't seen it before. um, so this is. I started with a pound of worms, and I believe it's been about 2 years. And what you're looking at right now is roughly a couple, like more than 10 pounds of earthworm castings, and it regenerates every time you add more table scraps into your compost. So veggie scraps, fruits, certain fruit snacks, fruit scraps, and it'll digest it. Depending on how many worms you have, it'll digest it within a day to a week.
Oh wow.
Um,
And when you have
you see
worms,
how alive it is.
how frequently should you be feeding them for like your worms if you have worms for your casting?
So that depends on like the amount of worms you have. So
Mm-hmm.
over the years, my 1 pound multiplied to 3 or 4 pounds, for example, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
able to put roughly a pound or two of scraps in there, and they will digest it within a week's time.
Okay.
Um, so the process is a little more, strenuous because you have to sift through the compost. You have to take the worm eggs and the worms out of the compost. You have to, sort of cure the compost so that it's ready to use for your plants.
Wait a minute.
Um,
Worm eggs? You said worm eggs?
yeah, they reproduce. How you think they reproduce?
You
So
haven't
like,
sipped.
like so depending on how many worms are in the bucket, they will reproduce until the point where like it's like not it's like in their instincts to know how many worms they can produce without making a overpopulation. Um, so yeah, they will reproduce, throw eggs. Those eggs will turn into your next red wigglers in the next month or so. Um,
Nice.
and these things right here basically are humic humic acid and fulvic acid, like microbial inputs. This one
Mm-hmm.
right here is just humic acid. It's just a basic. Um, you could think of it as like a soil conditioner, and it's good for enzymes in that nature. And the product next to it, Recharge,
Mhm.
has a multitude of things that's beneficial for your plants. And they consider this a form of compost tea. So if you don't have the means of, you know, getting the bucket, getting the air stone, getting all these supplies, and having to get, compost and having to create your microbial input, this will be like a shortcut to that. Um, this one is
Nice.
also another. This is the first compost tea bag that I ever used. I found the bag like uh, in the back of the, where I got all my plant stuff,
Hmm.
and this works generally in the same capacity, but without the aeration, you won't get the multiplication of microbes. But with this product, you basically put the tea. It's like a tea bag. You put it in
Hmm.
your waterer. You let it sit overnight for 24 hours, and then you're able to water your plants. Um,
So,
so the most. Go
I mean,
ahead.
you make yours from scratch, but and
Yeah.
obviously, you must like it. But how did you find? I was just going to ask in comparison between making your own and then being able to purchase on the shelf, like with this compost tea bag. How do you find the comparison, like the quality?
Honestly, there it's like buying a tomato from the grocery store and growing it yourself. It's like you can't guarantee quality unless you do it yourself. Um, that's when you know it's like it's going to be custom inputs to your liking, and you can um, basically have different inputs for any types of plants that you have. Because my tomato plants don't need more than my kale and my lettuce.
Got you.
So this is for people that don't have the means, like for now, like, and they're able to research it and figure out what compost seed does. That's the biggest thing with all this horticulture stuff is you really just have to do your own research, and cross compare different sites and see what works best for you. And that's what I've been doing for the past couple of years.
Awesome. And we are so glad that you have and that we have you on the team to help share this information with us. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, this has been
Also,
knowing all this stuff is
um, right. It's definitely important. Also, with this little armory list right here, that's just a way to show that the product is organic. Um, they have to
mm,
go through a review to, because there's products in the market that say natural. They say, you know, just things that aren't true in a sense. It's like
like
you
our
have to
food.
really right. It's like you don't know what they're putting into it until like they go through this type of review process.
Got you.
And every review process isn't perfect. So I'm not saying that the Omri review system is perfect, but it's better than nothing. And I think that's all we have right now as far as like reviews. Um, and this is another way you can figure out like what's in your products. If you look behind the package and it has, things like turkey litter, feather meal, bone meal, earthworm castings. If you see things like if it says like humus, if it says things of that nature, then it's going to be a better product to work with.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it for the compost tea. This is just like I like to hold my water because through different municipalities, the water is different. Different chlorine levels, different chloramine levels.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that you have to take that in consideration too. Chlorine kills bacteria and microbes, Um, so you have to do as much. You have to try to do as much as possible to try to get that those chemicals out of your water. In the past, people have said, let it sit for 24 to 40 8 hours, and it will dissipate through evaporation. But through like research, I found that in Massachusetts are basically like the levels dissipate like a point every hour, I think it was every day. So it'd be impossible for me to like totally remove all the chlorine.
Mm.
Bubbling also helps, chlorine, but not so much for the chloramine. So that's something you got to take into consideration, just like your quality of water. Um, and very quick, this is just like an enzymatic thing that you can add. It's very optional. This is malted barley that they make beer out of,
Hmm.
similar to hops. It has um, just the enzymes inside of the malted barley when you grind it up is a food source for microbes when you have it in the compost tea. So as it's bubbling, you want to have a food source for your compost tea. Whether it's a bacterial tea, you're gonna want to have molasses, kelp, humic acids. You want to have it to be a more sugar based compost tea. And the more complicated one, the fungal tea, you have to create a dish of fungi and then put it into the water to bubble.
Interesting. I had no idea about this.
Yeah, so definitely everybody do your research on, you know, just compost teas in general. I use it because I feel like it lessens me putting nutrients into the soil. Um, and it has an overall health. You have to think of it as like those probiotic drinks that you find in the supermarket, where it has
Yeah,
like the cultures and it's good for your stomach. Is exactly what the compost tea is. It's just like a probiotic for the soil.
that's a beautiful way to frame it. Compost tea is
Yeah,
nothing
that's
more than
ex-
a probiotic drink for your plant.
right. That's exact. Most. That's like the most simplest way to like put it, but it's a complex thing. So please research and don't just put multiple things together and think it's going to come out.
Don't throw a probiotic pill with water and think it's going to work
Right.
the same. Oh goodness. Yeah, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do some research, and I'm taking your tips. I'm gonna try to make a compost tea this week, and I'll let
Right.
you know how it goes. Well,
Definitely. Also, when you show me the pictures of your plants, I know you're gonna have a fun time doing some training work.
you saw how wild they are.
Yeah. So that's another thing like that we can, quickly get on. Just like topping your plants is essential to make your plant more bushy and not Christmas tree shaped. All
No,
these, yeah,
no
all these
Charlie Brown,
plants,
no Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
no Charlie, yeah, all these plants that you see right here, these are called monster crops. So disclaimer, I cut these during flower, and what that does is it sort of it sort of makes the plant top itself, which is pretty crazy. So all these plants that you see in front of you, I didn't top not one of them. They literally just started splitting by itself. Um, and then you can do whatever initial tops you want as you go. Um, but in veg, if you clone from veg, you would have to. It'll be like the normal cycle. It wouldn't, bloom as crazy as these do.
Okay.
But yeah,
Wow.
topping is important just to, tell your plant to tell the auxiliary nodes underneath that it's time to, stretch out, and, it sort of starts a competition between each node where it's like one will rise to the top and try to compete with the light to, for growth. So this is a plant that I, pulled out of the other tent to, show you like the ways, like, where this is an auxiliary node right here. So that's
Mhm.
once you top it, that's telling that node to basically shoot out, um, and, form more of a bush like shape. Um, and you see right there where I placed the scissors. Um, in my opinion, that's where I usually top. I'll
Mhm.
just snip that whole piece right there and just let everything underneath catch up.
Mhm.
Um, but if you see where I grab right here, you can also pull off this piece here, and it acts the same way. You pull off that, and that's another form of topping.
I topped all three of them last week the same way you just described, like with the scissors. Not
Right,
just pulling that top off, but like a nod, one nod underneath. I topped it. Um,
right.
so.
So you just want to make sure your plants are, as flat as possible. You see, I'm pulling them down just to make sure, you
Mhm.
know, everything gets light and everything, is able to catch up with each other. Because once one node blocks another, it slows down that node's growth. So your goal is to make sure that all your nodes are on the same length, on the same height, and that'll give you, maximum yields, and you won't have to worry about, that much popcorn nubs underneath.
No playing favorites with the nodes. Basically, you got to give them all, treat them all equally.
Yeah.
They can all
Once
grow
you
equally.
see one rising to the top, you got to pull them down, bring them back.
Oh my goodness. So last year when I was growing, it was like so painful. Every time people were like, when they're first growing, the first couple of branches, you got to cut those off. And so encourage grow to grow taller. And I was just like, no, this hurts. I don't want to cut it. They're like, it's too close to the soil. All my growers are
Right.
like encouraging me. It's too close to the soil. You have to cut those. You're
Hmm.
gonna get mold and stuff. It's too low to the
Hmm.
ground. The leaves, it's just so many problems. And oh my goodness, I would have to like talk to the plant bird
Just
before I cut. I was cutting them off. I was just like, I'm so sorry, like having a whole conversation. But that's why my weed came out fire last year. I just we had a close
yeah.
relationship.
And another thing too, to go back to compost tea. Um, I know that you're outdoor with it, so yours is a little different than indoor. But the compost tea also acts as a good foliar feed. What that does is each leaf will be basically coated with a layer of microbes and like fungi that attack anything that you just mentioned, like any mold, any trichoderma, any type of thing that's just harmful to the plant. So it acts sort of like a barrier. Um, some people say that some nutrients also get uptook by foliar teas, but it's for me. I feel like it doesn't. You know, the stomata, the stomata is when the leaf is open. That's like the perfect time to like do foliar feeds, and that's usually when it wakes up and when it goes to sleep. um so I don't think in that time frame it's able to like absorb any nutrients, not as much as people say, but it does help with pests in that nature. And what you said too about lollipopping, you want to make sure you're at least 3 or 4 inches away from the soil, because any leaves that get soil splashed onto it can be prone to pathogens. um, and that's how pathogens jump from soil to plant. Once you're watering, a little water splash will jump up and hit a leaf, and then that'll start that chain reaction.
And for all the newbie growers that are listening and like, what the heck are you guys talking about? Do not fear. I was the same way first starting out. Like, I have no idea what's lollipopping, what's this topping, what's these terms and all this grow talk. It's really unfamiliar. But we're gonna keep talking, you guys, because it's really important for consumers to understand growing and the process and how complex it is, and really just growing appreciation for our growers. And the best way that we know about how to develop an understanding of things is just hands-on experience. So we want to encourage everybody to become home growers and to learn as much as possible. And really to help, I feel like, adjust an industry that has treated our growers with the utmost disrespect. I mean, a lot of grower positions in this industry, growers are making like on average like $15 an hour, and it's just like insane to me that growers are not starting out at a six-figure salary. I would have thought they would have been like
That's
at the
ridiculous.
head. Yeah, it's the head
I
like
would
that.
never.
And oh, you would never. All of the best growers out there, you guys, like they're not they don't work at cultivation centers. They either own them or they're not. They may have sold information to the cultivation centers to help these dispensaries who own their cultivation centers to know what they're doing. But if the price isn't right, you're not seeing them there. They need to make their money. They know how much they're worth. And they're not compromising. So, just like Bird, like I would never. That's what a lot of our the most senior experts, they're saying the same thing. Senior growers, I'm sorry, not senior experts, but senior growers. They're saying the same thing. I just can't. Nobody's trying to not make a livable wage in an industry that's producing billions of dollars legally.
Right.
So, shout out to our growers. We appreciate you, and always sharing, always caring. And keeping the culture alive, really, because capitalism is doing its damnness, and the capitalist as well too, to kill off the culture. It feels like. So really, shout out to everybody that's still holding it down and keeping our industry and keeping the culture going.
Yes, because I like good weed, and over there, that's not. They could keep their sterile weed over there because that's so crazy.
And speaking of which, I heard the lighter flickering a couple of times. Bro, what strain you got today?
Yeah, man. So I'm testing out, you know. So when you cure, you're supposed to wait about 2 weeks to a month. But in these trying times, I can't, be spending money. So as soon as my bud is dry, it is being inhaled.
I know that's right.
Um, no, so I'm smoking on Zookies, which is animal cookies, and Gorilla Glue #4. Very,
Ooh,
I would say like a nutty, creamy, uh, terpene profile.
okay.
Um, and I got gifted this. There's some you can't find this in stores and seeds. The the breeders are Alien Labs, and they didn't put anything in retail. I found it off bag seed, which is basically finding a seed in a bag of weed that you find that you were going to smoke. So I was gifted by my friend who smokes a lot of exotic weed, and yeah,
Nice.
came out
So
with a winner.
I feel like the industry is still chasing, like the legal industry is still chasing like the legacy market. Like the growers are still like dominating like what strain is going to be grown and which one becomes popular and shares
Right,
that with the consumer, and the legal industry just plays catch up. And it's there's because there's just no relationship with their consumers, unlike growers who are really have like this intimate relationship with us as consumers and really understands the like long-term demands that's been placed, for like the past couple of years, and like they know what's popping, and have like a deep sense of forecast, and can help predict what, let's try these genetics, let's put these two strains together, and see how the people respond to these ones. So yeah, I just feel like a lot of that is still being ran by our legacy market. Shout out to our legacy.
Yes,
Love to
sir. You make everything go round, man.
for real. It's the people.
But
Um,
yeah,
speaking
speaking of
of
the people, we in sync. All right. So speaking of the people, definitely want to get into our holiday that's coming up, the Juneteenth, that is on Saturday. And we have an amazing event happening.
yeah,
Want to tell them more about uh, this community kickback with Queen Cheyenne.
yeah, it's with FTP Boston.
Okay.
Um, so for the people in Boston, um, and it's going to be at the Titus Sparrow Park. And it's a community kickback from 3 to 6 in honor of Juneteenth. And it's going to be like a community barbecue. There's going to be a dope DJ, free food, free clothes, vendors, performers, open mic. So definitely pop through. And if you're not fully vaccinated, please bring a mask. But they say they'll have extras. And yeah, just know that like they've also said, obviously this is a Black centered space. So know what you're walking into, but that's one of the Juneteenth events that's going on this Saturday. And we're definitely going to be popping through and showing some love. If we have our t-shirts, that have arrived, shout out to our t-shirts from that was designed by Fallen Cargo. We sold out of them for our 5K run, but if we get them in the mail, we'll have them and we'll bring them this Saturday, and we're going to gift them out to the people. And we also have a few other things, to gift out to the people for Juneteenth. So I'm super excited for Juneteenth this year. We have some clones, some seeds, potentially some t-shirts. And I just want to like go and just, be with our community and share and gift. And I think it's just the dopest thing to be able to do this, and for it to not be centered on capitalism. It's really, really about freedom and liberation and Black lives, and still the fight for freedom and liberation that we're experiencing.
Right.
And we have such a long, long, long relationship with cannabis, and a sordid history in this country with cannabis, still that we're still fighting for. So for me to be able to like share, our love and passion for this plant, and to publicly, right? And it's not like in promo, like, oh yeah, this is for my dispensary. Come spend $90 for an eighth. It's like
Right.
no, our people they can't afford that. The wealth gap is $8 to 247K. Like, who's really going to be purchasing this weed, and making sure that, and when you talk about an equitable market, it's always in consideration of like who's the owners, but an equitable market is also in consideration of like who's of all the consumers. And so you have to realize like all consumers are not in the same class, right? Like we're not all in the same class. And so really just being able to grow and gift. And gifting is legal, people. You can gift up to an ounce legally in Massachusetts. So take advantage of that, please. Anytime. Gift seeds, clones, plants, flour, everything. Whatever you can, just gift it out, because there's so many people struggling. And cannabis be the lifeline. For real, for real.
Thanks.
um, as we still be dealing with this crazy racist country. So, yeah, showing solidarity, showing support, grow the gift. That's the best way, and grow the gift to our Black and Brown communities, still being disproportionately impacted, still failing, dealing with a failed state and failed municipalities for restorative justice and transformative justice. So these are great things, and yeah, I'm super excited for this Saturday. Really, really happy, and it's been like long overdue, in my opinion. So yeah. And yeah, I believe it's this Saturday. I see the flyer says like from 8 to 11, but I believe it's from 3 to 6. So that might be that's what it says on there. Oh no, it is from 8 to 11 it says. But they said on another, they say, oh, it's both. I'm sorry. 3 to 6 and 8 to 11. So there's two of them. So on the
Okay.
phone, so it's from 3 to 6, that's the community barbecue, and then from 8 to 11 is the community kickback. Oh, I like that. I like that. That's so dope. We've got two can join in together. So it's from 3 to 6 and from 8 to 11. So you can do both. So we'll definitely be there for the 3 to 6. And if we can still kick it, we'll be there for the 8 to 11. But the 3 to 6 part, that expect that for the fall giveaways and stuff like that. That's where we're gonna be at for there.
Right. And shout out to FTB Boston for doing good work in the city, because I probably know a couple of them, because they were definitely youth at one point, and I'm pretty sure I know a couple of them, because this definitely sounds like something that one of my young homies that switched his life up and went from the streets to activism, and did a whole 180. He's definitely a part of things like this. So
Yeah,
um,
he is doing amazing work in Boston. They have a petition right now that they're asking for a reinvestment of $120 million into communities, and to divest from policing, and to invest into services for their communities, which is, things that we've been in the cannabis industry. We've been asking for the same thing, right? To invest in services, invest into funding. And our Black and Brown communities are demanding the same thing. So I'm really happy to see that petition. And just so you guys know, we at MRCC, we fully support this petition and believe you should be in support as well, too. So if you haven't had a chance, please go to defundboscops.org, and you will see right there the petition. .org/take action, and you'll be able to sign the petition, and let the city councilors know to defund, to freeze all Boston police, no new cops, no new cadets, and to invest $120 million into safety and wellness programming, led and designed by their communities. So that's really, really, important and, amazing to see. And also just want to do a quick shout out on that note, talking about alternative funding for alternative public safety. Shout out to Cambridge Heart, who last week, I believe, they won from the Cambridge City Council funding for their proposal for the Cambridge Heart program, which is the first alternative public safety programming in Massachusetts, from policing.
nah.
So yeah, that was started by two Black women, and they just did intense community work and outreach, and really, really happy to know them and to be able to speak with them, and have that energy here that we need. Investment in services, not policing. And in the cannabis industry, I feel like we're super passionate about that. This is about service, not policing. So glad to
Right.
see this, taking on. And I hope that the cannabis industry really starts to show up more to these important municipal meetings. It's not specifically cannabis. As being consumers, there's so many things that impact us. And so it's really important for people that do have the time, because time is a privilege. Um, Having time to show up and testify is a privilege. You know, a lot of people have to work multiple jobs. They don't have that bandwidth. So if you do have it, speak up, use your privilege, you know, speak up, and attend these meetings. And yeah, you know, show solidarity, do the work, show solidarity on behalf of people who are marginalized and unable to show up on their own behalf, due to capitalism, you know, the demand of capitalism. So yeah, super happy for that. That was also great news. Woohoo! So
Right.
I want to share that as well too. But for Juneteenth, is there any more? Oh, and fun fact, I have a Juneteenth tattoo. If anybody would ever, but yeah, it's so funny. I was just thinking, like, wow, June. I just Boston's so racist. You know, like 15 years ago, I would talk to people, Bird, and nobody knew what Juneteenth was. Like,
Right.
nobody knew what Juneteenth was. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, you don't know Juneteenth? And it was just like embarrassing. And people were just like, girl, you crazy. Like, you just militant and I'm like, no, I'm just aware of my history. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, I gotta give thanks, you know? So to see it, like it's really like surreal. Like, it's just like, it throws me off, you know, this year, like seeing all that. It's now a state holiday and we're seeing all this advertisement for it. And I'm like 2 seconds away from like jumping out of my skin if I see any white led Juneteenth events. Like, I do not need to see any. I know it's coming because this is Massachusetts, but I just don't need to see it, you know, happening at all. Any sort of like white-led organizing around Juneteenth. But
Well,
really happy to.
you see that it ties back into the history of Juneteenth. You know, it's like slaves didn't know that they were free for like 2 years after the whole thing happened. So like the whole emancipation happened. So it's just like we need to stop repeating history. You know, it's like the ignorance is really what's killing us, and it's like that's their main objective is, not for us to know our history, not to know, how I say our story, because his story is, I don't know who his is. It's like that always, used to bug me when that just the wording of what they use. It's like it's his story, it's not my story, because they don't teach none of that in their schools. So
Facts.
we just have to do the diligence to, keep this type of language and this type of, these topics alive. And, Juneteenth, you got to take the bad with the good, because, sometimes it takes it to become a trend for people to actually do the research.
And what, so for me, I just want to share, like, my favorite part of Juneteenth is the fact that it's a celebration of, it's a celebration that did not occur and could not occur until the last one was free. So it's literally
Right.
like no one is being left behind. It's a celebration of like of the last that should have been first, right? Like the years, you know, like they were waiting and nobody was telling them, nobody was sharing. Um, and so when the celebration occurred, it's like literally like that last part, you know, and all of us being able to celebrate in unison. And there's something hugely special about community, you know, based upon inclusion versus community based upon exclusion, which is so much of our society. Like, so much of our society is based upon exclusion. This is just like this country, what it's founded upon, and everything. So
Right.
I feel like Juneteenth is just such a radical like celebration of Black joy, because it's like it's the unity, you know, that we always like scream for and we love for, within our communities. It's my favorite holiday that we have, I think.
Yeah, and it ties into, one of the topics that we want to discuss before we leave here is just like what talking about restorative justice. I feel like there's a lot of people talking um, locally, and I know nationwide, where it's like people are trying to hold people accountable. People want certain dialogues. I'm speaking to, countless artists and, people that do, organizing work. And it's like people want to have certain dialogues that other people are scared of. So I just want to get into like what restorative justice means, just like to define it again for people because I feel like there's a lot of talks, about the social equity and things of that nature. And I just feel like people are missing the point of, racial equity and things of that nature. So,
So restorative justice is literally like it's just an approach to justice um, that puts the focus of rehabilitation of offenders through reconciliation with victims in the community at large. Um, and so it does have like principles and there's a process towards it. Um, and this is like really important because um, before restorative justice, justice was viewed at and still is a lot, at least in Massachusetts, I feel like very much viewed as a form of punitive. So when you go through the courts, justice is like being met with a punitive action, and it is completely out of the hands of the victim. This is like a state that's declared this is what justice is going to be for you. And a
right,
lot of times the victim may feel like this isn't the type of justice I had wanted at all. So I think that, it's important to recognize that difference. And then something else that's really, really important is that there's a difference between another term that people may be hearing more and more about is transformative justice. And there is a
Mhm.
difference between restorative justice and transformative justice. And so some of the historical things, like one of the things we know is that restorative justice is actually written into our legislation. It's written into 94G, and we know that cannabis tax revenue is supposed to be allocated towards restorative justice. Transformative justice is slightly different. And transformative justice is a process where all individuals who have been affected by an injustice are given the opportunity to address and repair the harm. And those affected consider like how the act has affected them, and then what can be done to repair the harm. And this term was coined by a Black woman, Miriam Kaba, I believe. Kiba, I believe I'm saying her last. I hope I'm saying it correctly out loud.
Mhm.
But she's an organizer, an educator, and curator, and her work has been focusing on ending violence, and dismantling the prison industrial complex, transformative justice, all that good work. So this is amazing work, important work. And here in Massachusetts, we're really blessed. There's a few people who have been trained directly with Miriam Kaba here and are continuing on the transformative justice within our Black and Brown communities here in Massachusetts. And so we're seeing that even though the legislation has restorative justice written into it, really our Black and Brown communities are saying, wait a minute, the restorative justice isn't really what we're asking for, because when you look at our communities and if we say restore, what are we asking you to restore us to? Are we asking you to restore us to where we were um, before 50 years ago, before the war on drugs were? And
Right,
so for Black and Brown communities, restorative justice isn't what they're asking for. We're asking for transformative, to transform our communities, because justice is something that was never ever given towards Black and Brown communities. So transformative justice is really a radical notion, birthed, from the Black community, and being carried forward. And really, really excited to see how this is going to impact our work, even as we're doing it. here at, in cannabis and across Massachusetts. We're like grow, gift, restore. We're having conversations like, oh, do we need to change this? Like, and just learning more about transformative justice and going through trainings and making sure to read and understand the theory and application of it. And what does this look like in our communities? And I'm really, really excited because a lot of this learning is framed around accountability and conflict resolution. And I feel like these are two huge areas that our community really struggles because we've been lacking with just services, from mental health and everything else for our community. So living underneath stress and being disproportionately impacted, dealing with systemic racism, being targeted, harassed, killed, like all of these things has us just in a deep sense of trauma. And so to be able for us to understand accountability and conflict resolution, and having this being, replicated across in our communities, I really just am extremely hopeful right now, to hope that this helps to bring alternative, answers, and to help provide solutions, especially for our youth, that and our men that are really struggle with conflict resolution skills, and examples of that being practiced within their community, so they have something to follow. So, hope that's a short summary. But those are differences between the two, and yeah, really, really excited. Regardless, I'm excited to see more, transformative justice happen to our communities, and more funding for restorative justice for our communities across the state of Massachusetts, particularly our Black and Brown communities, because they are like anemic with funding from municipalities and from the state, and for services from the war on drugs.
Definitely. I've definitely been having this conversation a lot. So I know that, it's not a lost topic. People are still thinking, at least critically within themselves. It's just getting it to a point where people aren't, it's a fear thing. People have to stop being fearful of I guess repercussions, or how people perceive, whatever situation comes about. Like, you have to learn how to, take in critical criticism, and just like figure stuff out and break it down. Where did this situation come about? How did each party, feel about everything? What is the, main objective to make sure everybody comes out good in the situation? So
I feel
it's
like
just, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. You could go
No,
ahead.
you go, you go, you go.
I was gonna say I feel like people really struggle because of the perfection that's like pushed on us from
Yes.
society, from white culture,
Right.
because this whole country is founded, it centers, white culture, and white culture really stresses perfection, and perfection we know is, impossible for any human, because we're born to be imperfect. So it's really setting us up for failure mentally, and a whole lot of stress and disappointment. And I always feel like dealing with accountability is just not our strength if we're always striving for perfection, right? Like, we should be striving for accountability and to learn. And part of learning is making mistakes, but you keep it's practicing. Learning is a practice wheel, you keep going. But if you're not practicing, you're not making mistakes, you're not learning, you're not having any, tools of accountability, people of
Right.
accountability around you. And this is just like a muscle, I feel like a muscle that's really, really weakened, and it needs to be strengthened. That's how I look at it. What about you?
I just tie it back to, the research that I've, done about our black leaders in history. It's just like there was a certain, like, how can I say? I feel like even though people were scared to speak out, there was always people in those time frames that they could look up to. So it was always, there was always a figure of hope, if that makes sense, where it's just like people have a reference to where all this is coming from. So I think it's just up to people like us and the many artists that reach out in the DMs and aren't really ready to be as vocal as I am, because everybody knows that I don't bite my tongue for anything. I will tell you that I am depressed online. I will tell you that I'm not having a good day. Vanity just doesn't overcome my life like that anymore. And it took uh, almost 3 decades to, realize that. So it's just coming to the realization that we're the next front line of, our history, keeping our history alive and, you know, making it cool and making it, making these safe spaces for people to open up in these ways.
I
Um,
think I think that's dope. I think more like safe spaces where radical honesty can be practiced is more important than spaces being created um, for a look,
yeah,
for a vibe. You know what I mean? Like the like
yeah,
so, we're having spaces being created for a vibe versus for actual like where people can genuinely feel like, okay, this is a space where I can practice um, radical honesty, and there won't be any judgment or anything like that. And it takes so much strength. So I want to say shout out to you, Bird, for having that strength and practicing radical honesty. It's not easy. I'm not vain like that either, but it's really not easy. There's so much judgment and just
oh
miseducation.
yeah, oh
So
yeah. I get it
miseducation.
every day.
Yeah, the people. It's so sad because it's like the more you practice radical honesty, for me, it's just, and I end up dealing with so much more like ignorant judgments, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
like I'm not explaining myself to you. Who has the time for this shit? Like you're miseducated, my G, and I don't have the time for this at this point. And then you have to start making time to make sure people understand, and that takes even more time. So after you've gathered the strength to be fully who you are and sharing your truth, then you have to help other people to understand, because especially for Black and brown communities, again, no funding towards services. So this is impacting our
right.
health, education, everything. So it's just so much ignorance, and conviction and ignorance too. That's the part that gets me. It's like people be loud and wrong. And I'll just be like, oh my goodness, like I can't, like I can't, like people, we be loud and wrong. We gotta stop doing like
Right.
like stop being loud and wrong. But I think that's Massachusetts in general. Massachusetts will put its nose up in a minute and act all like sedity in a heartbeat and be
No, of course.
straight wrong, and straight sedity about it, and then be like, oh yeah, I was wrong, and don't even won't even acknowledge it or apologize for it, just like keep it moving. So
And too, when you're as vocal as I am, it's just you start noticing doors closed, so you know that you're starting to head down a different path. That people, it's like a road that has been carved by our ancestors, but it hasn't been maintained for decades. So it just has poison ivy, and it's just like you got to
mhm.
cut through it. It's just not hasn't been taken care of. So it's just it also
Well,
shows me that I'm in the right path, because I'm for me, my success is getting that one person to DM me like, yo, yeah, that's right. Or have an actual dialogue about a specific topic and not have any like, you know, um just not being, standoffish or just like aggressive. So it's definitely a journey and we're all on it. And it's not an easy one, but somebody's had to do it. I don't want to be in no history books, but I want to make sure that the next generation has something to look forward to. Because in this time frame that we have right now, like the negative and the superficial is taking over. So you know, just having these type of talks right now is gonna take some time for people to get adjusted to. So
They'll come
um,
around because we ain't going nowhere, folks.
definitely. And just to wrap it up, I do want to thank all the sponsors that we have for our 5K run coming up soon. Um, it's at the end of June, so if you guys hear this and are trying to be a part of it, it's free to apply. And, we can get friends and family to sponsor you. Um,
Yeah. Make sure to join our run. It's our 5K run. It's virtual. It's a fundraiser to restore our communities. That's the theme. And you can go to bit.ly/restore 5K run 2021. And all the funds raised go towards our restorative justice initiatives. So we have, like our expungement clinics, we have an artist residency program we're kicking off this year, and several other initiatives as well too. So all the funds raised go specifically towards our restorative justice initiatives. And it's an adaptive run. We're inclusive. MRCC is a intersectionality practicing organization. So we want everybody to be able to participate. So if you can walk, you can run, you can jog, you can be in a stroller,
crawl,
crawl,
anything.
air. Yeah, it's just, just move in any way. You could be on your treadmill in your house. You're still not messing with outside. That's COVID. That's
Right.
fine. If you are already got your shots, you're feeling, hey, it's time to be social. You can meet up with some friends. You guys can go running together, and, go for a walk, and just put some miles in and help raise awareness for all of our issues that's going on in Massachusetts, for restorative justice, and to really help promote awareness. Registration is free, and we did that as well too because we want to be aware that we want people to know that even if you're unable to raise funds, you can still participate and your voice still matters. And
Right.
getting awareness out there for communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs, right? These are the same communities being disproportionately impacted by COVID. These are the same communities that the majority of our essential workers come from. So they've been hit hard by COVID, between the labor force and, income, as well as deaths and sickness. So all assistance, and helping to center these voices and to uplift them, it matters, and it definitely has an impact. So we want to encourage you to sign up. Again, that's bit.ly/restore 5K run 2021. And yeah, next week we'll have our final week for the 5K run. We've been going for a couple of weeks now, and super happy, super thankful. Let's do a sponsor shout out real quick, right? We have some amazing sponsors so far for our 5K run. We've been able to work with, who do we have? We have MCR Labs, and we did an event with them to help educate people for growing our communities. We also have Theory Wellness, Dorchester Arts Project. Who else am I missing? DJ Cakewalk, Fallon Cargo with the t-shirts, which are amazing. Run Us Our Money, sold out already. If you missed it, I'm sorry. We're hoping that there'll be more. Resonate, shout out to you. Shout out to the Mensing group. Thank you for your donation. And shout out to the Ride for Black Lives Boston. I believe they have a ride coming up, like not this Saturday because that's Juneteenth, but the last Saturday of the month, I believe, is their next ride. So shout out to them as well too for all of their work and supporting us. And if you missed it at one of those rides, I think it was back in April, we spoke from the war on drugs, and to support the decriminalization of all drugs in Massachusetts and getting a call to action from everybody. So we appreciate all of the support and solidarity. And yeah, if you would also like to assist directly with ending the war on drugs, just DM us, like hit us up, drop a comment, let us know, and we'll send you a link. You can register, and be attend action hours or any other way that you can. If action hours don't work out for you, we could figure out something else because there's so much work that needs to be done, you guys. So we appreciate all of your energy, all of your assistance, and yeah, just don't be afraid to slide in the DMs. I end up meeting you guys, and you guys are like, "Oh, I can sign up to do that." I'm like, "Yeah." So you guys hear
Right.
us, and you're like, "I just feel like you're so far away, like I'm not an actual person." And I meet you guys, and you're like, "Oh, you're a whole human being." I'm like, "Yes, I'm a whole human being. And so are you. And we can make change together. And this can be super fun. And we can smoke our weed and talk our shit and do our thing. So
Right.
um don't feel like you have to be a stranger or that we're strangers. We are strangers, but it's all fam here. So keep the culture, smoke something, relax, and slide in the DM so you can get active and feel comfortable. And just ask whatever questions you need to ask to understand things. There's no questions that are dumb. And we try to assist and answer as many questions as possible, as much as our bandwidth allows.
Definitely. And definitely shout out to all of our Patreon members. We appreciate you so much because without that, without you guys, this work would not be possible. We are a 501c4 and we are member based, so every member counts, even if it's for just $5 a month. It helps us do the work that is so desperately needed in our neighborhood, in our communities. Also, for the $25 a month, I will be. I'm putting together a grow to consume guide, very in depth, so you don't have to really go to many, YouTube accounts to compile it. I will compile it for you, and I put it into a comprehensible guide that people can follow. Also, at $50 a month, we can also talk. Just shoot us an email if you're a $50 a month Patreon follower, so you can get exclusive gifts. And yeah, legacy donors 500 and 335 a month for all our organizations or companies that want to, you know, help us in that manner as well.
So translation, right? If it's like if for an ounce in Massachusetts, it's between like $400 or $500 a month. For an ounce, not a month. $400 or $500 for an ounce. And a
Yeah,
pound is pushing around 3,500, 4,000 for a pound. So for what's an ounce to throw on the movement, right? Like if you're an organization or a business and you're pushing, if you're a cannabis business, you pushing millions, my G. What's an ounce a month towards the movement, right? And so we wanted to like use consumer language because we're a consumer council, and also to just help put things in perspective. That what we're asking for is not that much because one person spends this multiple times a month at these businesses.
definitely.
And to even ask for, 0.1% back towards, our organization is not asking for once a month. Is like, it's not asking for a lot. It's not asking for a lot at all. It's asking for the bare minimum, actually. So help support the movement. This allows us to stay going since the pandemic hit. It's because of our Patreon members that we've been able to keep going. So we thank all of you that stayed on. We appreciate you. We've been sending messages to you guys. Thank you for holding us down. You are awesome. And we're really excited. We're making it through, some critical changes. And we're really excited about the things that we have coming out over this summer and fall. So thank you for staying in with us and enduring with us, and being part of the movement, because I think you're going to be really excited. I know you guys are going to be really excited about the things we have coming out going forward for this year.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys for listening to episode 3. Um, the 5K is the last week of this month, just to reiterate that. So
The last full week.
the
The
last
last,
full week.
yeah, because the last week is like a partial week. It's like the 28th or the 30th, but this the last full week, which is next week. It's the
Yeah,
21st through the 25th. Just wanted to clarify. Sorry, Bird.
got you. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday, you guys. Bye.
Peace.
That was